Okay, friends, my name's Mick Napier and I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Our topic for today is COVID in Israel-Palestine. And my guests today are Ronnie Barkan, who's with us. Welcome to you, Ronnie.
Thank you.
Speaking to us from where, Ronnie?
From Ranana, 48.
From inside 48. And I'm just off the phone to our main guest, our star guest today, Mona El-Farra, from the Gaza Public Health Committees. They've got a major issue in Gaza at the moment, and that's topped off by a large storm.
Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you very clearly, Mona. Now, I wonder if the storm will allow us to see you.
Go on and see how can we do, yeah?
Okay. Mona warned us earlier. Yes, I can hear you, Mona. Mona warned us earlier that I've got a very large storm in Gaza and it could really impede communications.
Yes, it is.
So we're going to try to start. We will start, but if communication breaks down with Mona, we may be forced to reschedule. Shall we try, Mona?
Yes. So okay. This is testing, yeah?
Again, sorry?
Are you going to test or are we starting?
This is the real thing, Mona El-Farra from Gaza Public Health Committees. You're live. So the topic is COVID in Israel-Palestine. Ronnie can provide insights from inside 48, where Israel's performance is such that it's getting accolades around the world as the best in the world. But we'll look at the dark underbelly of that claim. Mona is speaking to us from Gaza, where she is one of the leading figures in the Gaza Public Health Committees, Middle East Children's Alliance, and much else besides. Mona, it's an honor to have you back again. We've interviewed you once before, but in the time of COVID, a big welcome to you.
Yes.
So Mona, and I know it's during a storm in Gaza, but 13 years of siege. What situation does the virus find in Gaza today?
Please say it again, because the line was. What did you say?
After 13 years of siege, Mona, what opportunities does the coronavirus find in Gaza today?
Let's start by saying that during last month, which was December, until now, the number of cases, new discovered COVID-19 cases were increasing. The number of people who passed away as well increased. And recently, the last few days, the number of cases started to slow down, to be lower than it was last month. So this is the first thing I would like to say. And we have some indicators for this. So the indicators are the percent of casualties and the tests as well. And the number of cases that needed to be admitted to the hospitals, and as well as those who needed the ICU. So these all indicators is recently started to slow down. So this is, I consider this a very good sign at the moment, despite the fact that the COVID-19 was a new experience for all health workers in the world. Big countries with good readiness and good health resources were paralyzed facing this virus. Despite of that, we did well in Gaza. I wouldn't say excellent, but we did well the situation before the virus, because the situation before the virus of the health system in Gaza was and still very bad. Despite of that, we managed and there was a lot of work that has been done in Gaza, either by the governmental hospitals or the governmental health system or the UNRWA, the United Nations Relief Agency for Palestinian refugees. So these are good signs. Despite all the odds in Gaza, despite that poverty level is very high, object poverty, and I am not here today to repeat the numbers. It is very bad numbers, the poverty, the unemployment, the object poverty, the sewage system, the electricity, all the basic infrastructure for any country is in Gaza collapsed, including the health, of course. In health, if we want to talk about health, the hospitals suffered a lot because many important surgical operations has been postponed because of the COVID. And one of our strong points here as Palestinian people who are living in Gaza and in Palestine, and especially in Gaza, because we are living through one emergency that leads to another. And we have special system that we deal with this despite all the small resources. I know it is not ideal, but we have this spirit of resistance, resisting the emergency situation, and living in such a small place like Gaza, we have no other choice but to live and to continue working despite of all the odds. I know it is unfair. It is unfair and it is unjust to continue living an abnormal life. But what is the alternative? To die, to be crushed under the occupation boots? No, this will not happen. And recently, I don't want to talk more about the COVID. I would like to talk about vaccination, for example. The
Mona,
vaccination.
can you try to balance your camera? It's moving around quite a lot. It's a dancing camera we have here.
Okay, is it okay now?
That's what we need. Perfect. Mona, before you continue, I'm speaking to you from Britain. The last figures I saw were 85,000 dead from COVID. We had one of the best health services in the world. It was run down and was able to cope, and has now been overwhelmed, so that cancer patients are no longer being given life-saving operations and treatment. So we've got a catastrophe here, and we started off with well, an excellent health service in many ways. But you start off from 13 years of siege, a very low level. But you're saying that the experience of social solidarity, of coping with innumerable crises, was what helped you to cope. Have I got that right? Yeah.
Yes, you got it right. And there's no way that we compare the number of cases in the UK compared to Gaza. But if you want to compare the health system in Britain and the health system in Gaza, it means that we did very well despite of all what's happening. The numbers in Gaza, it is not as high as 85,000. I have numbers here. In Gaza up till now, we have 2,149 number of people who suffered of who have the corona, and we have the people who passed away is 484, which is nothing compared to your numbers, but still it is big thing compared to our readiness and our resources. It is
Mona,
big,
before I bring in Ronnie, a lot of people here are afraid, especially the elderly. But I wonder if people in Gaza have so much to be afraid of in terms of Israeli violence and siege, that this seems much less terrifying than it is for people here. Could that be true?
Yes, as I said earlier, We are used to the abnormal. We are used to the dire situation. We are used to the war, the attack, not the war, the attacks. We are used to the deprivation in every thing. So I don't. I say it again. It is not ideal situation, and I'm not proud of this. I am proud of being under occupation or siege. I'm not proud, but it was imposed on me. So I need to resist and to have to encourage people's steadfastness and deal with the crisis. But the ideal situation is that there should be no occupation, no siege, and all Palestinian rights should be according to the international law. I'm saying that we are dealing abnormalities all the time. Besides, I would like to attract your attention and the viewers that now at the moment every single country in the world is talking about the vaccine. Let's talk about Israel next. Israel up till now they got first country to get the vaccine. I don't know the percent, it's not in front of me. Maybe Ronnie can say more about this, how many people has been vaccinated in Israel, but the number here is 21% of Palestinian people who are living in Palestine for the Israelis.
Well, let me bring in Ronnie then. Let me bring in Ronnie. You're under siege.
No. I just, if you don't mind, just I would need to continue my point. And according to the international law, according to Geneva Convention, health rights, we are still under occupation, and we are the responsibility of the occupation. It's up till minute we didn't have any promises of any vaccine, whatever. And I call this the new way of apartheid health. Health should be for all, especially during this pandemic, but this is not happening because we are living under occupation, and the world should put more pressure on Israel, especially at this time. All the time, of course, human rights has been violated, but at this special time when the political prisoners in the Israeli jails didn't get the vaccine, while the people who, I don't know what you say it in English, the officers, the guards, yes, are getting the vaccine, and the political prisoners are not getting it. Population of Gaza and West Bank are not getting the vaccine. Which way of law? I can't call it one thing. It is the apartheid, a new system of apartheid health. And we here in Gaza, especially in Gaza, there is a statement has been signed by hundreds of organizations and thousands of people, and we are sending it to the world to tell the world that pressure should be put on Israel to stop this now regarding the vaccination and the medicine as well. Thank you. That's all.
No, it's not all. We'll be back to you in a little while. Mona, Ronnie, you're an Israeli Jew. You're part of the privileged section of the population. Mona said they're inoculating the guards in the prisons, but not the prisoners. This is beyond disgusting. Can you comment on that, Ronnie?
Yes, and thank you, Mona, and I'm sending you regards and much health from here, from 48. I would like to mention that Germany, for example, was acting in order to submit Israel to the vaccination program of the EU, of the European Union, where, of course, Israel does not belong to the EU. And as far as I know, this is the only country that has been admitted to that vaccination program, where the EU purchased, I think, 400 million vaccinations from AstraZeneca, what's called the Oxford vaccine. In response to that, I was telling especially the people in Germany how they have learned absolutely nothing from the past, where they are actually working to vaccinate the prison guards, but not the prisoners, because Germany obviously admitted Israel, and what they call Israel is 48, so-called Israel proper, obviously without taking into account that who are in most need for these type of vaccinations, which are those who are being imprisoned and subjugated, etc. in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, so we have to remember that about the responsibility of the ruling power, especially when it comes to Israel, when you know, any occupying power has no rights, it has only obligations to the people that it occupies. And this is especially true in the case of Gaza, and this is also true with regard to the prisoners in Israeli prisons, which are, many of them are Palestinians. We have 5,000 political prisoners, Palestinians, almost 200 children out of them. And when we talk about prisoners in an actual prison, with prison guards and everything, we see pretty much the same type of treatment happening. Also here in Site 48, where those who are responsible for the well-being of the people who are under their care or responsibility are totally negligent at best at basically supplying the basic needs for these people for health and for shelter and food, etc. So this is the first thing that we have to, to take into account.
But this is, Mona, this is just an extension of the permanent situation or the long-term situation, that Israel as the occupying power is responsible for making sure you and everybody else in Gaza has access to health, food, clean water, education, electricity, and so on. But you rely upon international aid from which Israel makes a profit quite often. So is Israel exploiting? Do you think it's part of a plan simply to inflict greater pain and suffering on the people of Gaza by denying them access to COVID vaccine? I don't want to exaggerate it, it's already grim enough. Mona, can you tell us about the vaccination situation? Will Palestinians have to wait till February? Please tell us more.
First, I don't think that it will be ready in February. It will be after February. And things are not clear if we are going to pay for the vaccine or get it free as people, I mean. Second thing, I agree with your point that there is a great interest by Israel to get the best out of the medicine getting into Gaza or the vaccine into Gaza, and they are not surprised by this because Israel is part of the great capitalist system in the world, which is the USA. So this doesn't surprise me. Their way of dealing with any situation is not the way of people who are humanitarian or socialists. So I'm not surprised by that. I am sure, for me as citizen under occupation, they are investing of our economy under occupation to their benefit. So I will not be surprised that they will invest into the COVID-19 vaccine as well. And this doesn't surprise me because, as I mentioned earlier, they are part of a larger system in the world. This system that deprive people who don't have the access to health of deprive them of no, just a minute. I did not say it right. Just give me 1 second. What I mean that Israel part of big is friend or allies or part of the big capitalist system like the USA, and they are crushing people who are weak and vulnerable for the sake of those who have the money and the big corporation companies and the wealth in the world. So this is not big surprise for me. It's not, as well as it was not surprising for me in the beginning of the COVID-19 to learn from my comrades and colleagues in the USA that there was a great number of people who are living in New Mexico, for example, who are indigenous or indigenous Americans, the Native Americans who has not been has the accessibility to the good health care while others have. So this is the world now, and Israel is a shining star in this new world.
Absolutely, it's a shining star or a dark star. I did see the figures. I don't want to depart from Gaza and Palestine and Israel, but during the lockdown, the richest billionaires in the world have increased their wealth by $1 trillion. So there's something going on here. Ronnie, is the vaccine speeding past Palestinian communities in the West Bank to get to illegal settlements? Is it really as naked as that? If you're Jewish, you get a jab. If you're Palestinian, you can go to hell.
Yes.
I don't want to exaggerate it. Is that what's happening?
You were not exaggerating at all. But even before going into that clear type of discrimination, I'd like to go back to what Mona said about the financial incentive here. And we all know that Israel makes a hell of a profit, literally, from developing and testing weapons on the people of Gaza. And also in the West Bank. In the West Bank, they usually use the so-called less than lethal weapons, and in the West and in Gaza, they use the very lethal weaponry that they produce, their means of destruction and control, etc. And once it is field tested, they are making a buck from basically selling these tested products, as they call them. Now, I believe that the same rationale, the same mentality also applies to the way that Israel regards Gaza with regard to COVID vaccines and COVID in general. You know, the pandemic taught us many things. I mean, it puts everything in perspective, and it kind of forced people into reevaluate how they approach the situation. Now, Israel being Israel, it treats everything as it is in a constant state of war and a constant state of control and controlling population. Actually, I think that Israel's best achievement, other than convincing the world that there is even an iota of legitimacy in the Zionist project in Palestine, and other than convincing the world that it is a complicated situation when it is not complicated at all, it is the least complicated situation. It is brutal, it is harsh, it is monstrous, but it is not complicated. But other than that, I think that Israel's greatest success is being really a master of divide and conquer. And they have done that politically, and they have done that geographically. And I believe that Gaza is also being used as a laboratory of sorts with regard to the pandemic. I don't know that. I mean, it is still too soon to say how it is being used, but I believe that it is. And also, the same rationale also applies also to the way that Israel treats the people inside 48. And we know that obviously there is discrimination like in many other places, but there is even more so that form of discrimination where obviously the affluent places receive much more vaccinations. The percentage is much higher than the more impoverished places. We see sectors like the ultra-Orthodox and the Palestinians who are citizens of Israel who have much higher COVID infection cases and far less vaccination available. It's not that they don't get vaccinated, but they receive far less. And this has to do with several issues. It has to do with the lack of facilities, the lack of access to these types of health products. And it also has to do with the inherent lack of trust in the system by those who have been routinely oppressed and subjugated, both the ultra-Orthodox and the Palestinians. Now, going back to your question, Mick, about the people in the West Bank, obviously everything in the West Bank is, there is a dual system there. There is a military system and a civilian system put in place in the same territory. Even when people participate in a car accident, okay, if there is a car accident between a Palestinian driver and an Israeli settler, then you know, the settler will go to some civilian court to settle that issue, and the Palestinian will go to a military court where there are totally different laws that apply. So obviously when we talk about vaccines and all sorts of other types of access to healthcare, then the situation is totally couldn't be farther apart. Those who are in Israeli only Jewish-only settlements obviously have full access to these vaccinations from. They started bringing in the Pfizer vaccinations, and then there's others on the way. 2 million people have been vaccinated so far. Obviously, all of them are Israeli citizens. And that also includes, obviously, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, and those in the West Bank obviously did not receive any of that, neither the ones in Gaza.
Can I ask Mona and then come back to you, Ronnie? But Mona, I remember the British government, I mean, it's quite happy to sell arms to Israel, but they refused visas to some Palestinian medical workers to attend a conference in Hull some years ago to prevent them receiving, to share views with international colleagues. To what extent has the siege and the isolation of Gaza made it a problem for the health workers to cope with this completely new situation?
Thank you for this question, because when we give numbers, random numbers, not random, I mean solid numbers, we have 13 hospitals, governmental hospitals. We have 8 hospitals. We have hospitals, or beds, for example, we have 2,000 beds in Gaza altogether, a little bit more. When we say that, it is not just objects, it is the bed, and the hospital needs good equipment, good functioning equipment, and good trained staff, including nurses, physicians, surgeons, etc. And of course, resources. And I'll start with our staff. Our staff, nurses, doctors, different specialties, has been deprived the chance of getting further training outside the country and coming back to Gaza. So this ongoing training or ongoing education in the health is lacking in Gaza, and of course it affects the general skills of doctors in Gaza, and we notice this especially during the siege because of the restriction of movement. Many doctors got invitations for courses, for conferences, etc., and just a few managed to have this chance, and this affects the health system. If I want to talk about the equipment, let's say we have equipment. We need spare parts for those equipments to be functioning well, either laboratory equipments or surgical equipments or diagnostic equipments. We have the equipment, for example. To have these equipments, we suffer a great deal to get it into Gaza. Many restrictions until we get these things to Gaza, and then suffer again if it needs maintenance. And this, of course, affects the quality of health services that is offered to patients. Medicine. Our medicine in the stores, most of the time, it is near zero, and it is daily suffering and excess work to get medicine into Gaza. When we get it either late or small amounts. We don't have enough resources or just basic medicines.
Mona, just to be clear, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but how many vaccines have you received already in Gaza?
How many, sorry, what?
How many vaccines of any kind against COVID have you received in Gaza?
No, we have get none, nothing.
Zero.
Yes, till now zero. Nobody has vaccine in Gaza. This is what I said earlier on, that we sent a statement to the whole world that Gaza and the West Bank didn't get any vaccine, and we are under the responsibility of the occupying force according to the Geneva Force Convention, and no, we get nothing. The tests. The test kits needed to diagnosis of the COVID-19. We get it with great difficulty, and up till now, the number of cases that has been announced that we have in Gaza, it is under very much under registered. The number of people who are having the coronavirus is far more than the number that has been registered, because the numbers that has been registered, it has been registered according to the tests, the diagnostic tests, but we don't have enough kits to investigate every single case. You know why? So we have under registration in the numbers. And this is not only underestimation, under registration and underestimation, because we don't have enough kits, diagnostic kits. Another thing that we have, the nature of living in Gaza, it is very overpopulated place, small place with 2.2 million, and dire situation, poverty, objective poverty, with highly crowded homes, extended buildings. Maybe it is not one building, but in the same building many families live, because of the general situation is very bad and dire. So it is very difficult also to get people proper quarantine when they get the virus. This is another cause why the virus is spreading largely in Gaza. And we finished with that now for some period. I don't know for how long. Now the number is going less because it was the first month of winter. But this, in health, you don't need only the doctor and the medicine and the surgical intervention. In health, you need the environment, the good social and economical environment. Health is linked to social and economical environment, which we are lacking in Gaza. Something we are proud of is that we have our solidarity, social solidarity, and we have our steadfastness. Despite of everything, I believe that my people, we all believe that we're on the path of freedom, a path of hope, to have self-determination, to have the injustice to be lifted and justice prevail. We have this. That's why I don't lose faith. I don't lose hope that we will continue. We'll continue doing that. But in the end, we have children, we have women, we have people who need to live. So this is not only Palestinian people in Palestine problem. It should be one of the most important problems of the world, that because the problem came, the outcome, I mean, of the Palestinian cause came on a very unique or very unique way of some people were uprooted of their homes and replaced with another people. Despite of that, the land is enough for all of us. For all of us, it is enough if people, if Israel has the will, because now increasing number of people in Palestine are calling for one state solution, one vote, one person, one that this land, the future of this land, that should be shared by both nations, both the Arab and the Israelis, but again based on justice, and again based on the right of refugees. And the right of refugees, right of return, it doesn't mean at all that the Israelis are out. But these are, I'm not talking about romantic, but I am sure that the future, maybe not in my time or your time, the future will bring this solution, because the Palestinian, after 4 or 5 generations now, when you ask the child, where did you come from? He say, I came from Jaffa, I came from Haifa, I came from villages of the south of Gaza. And some of those children as well, they go to the borders and their parents show them the land that they were forced to leave in 1948. I think I'll stop here. I feel a little bit tired.
No, you're obviously working and exhausted. No, when we think about Gaza, Mona, we think about
not exhausted, not exhausted, but I see it in my mind that this is justice, and what happened was injustice, and the world is cruel as long as it is controlled by this capitalist system, the USA and the other countries.
I'd like to strengthen you, Mona.
Ronnie, can I bring in Ronnie here? I mean, you look at Gaza and you think of what did the Irish poet say? A terrible beauty is born. Yeah, it's a terrible situation, but it's so inspiring how Gaza people continue to resist. Ronnie, do you know how many COVID vaccines have reached the Palestinians of the West Bank?
No, I don't, but I believe that little to nothing. I mean, I think we're talking about zero, but there could be a handful of vaccines that arrive. But just before the vaccines, Mona touched on another issue, which is the right of return. And the right of return is the issue. It is the crucial issue. If we're not talking about that, we're not talking about anything of value with regard to Israel-Palestine. The only way to turn around the situation, the only way to abolish the system of oppression that exists for the past 7 decades, at least, is to demand full equality, full rights for all the people of that land, all the 20 million, roughly 20 million sons and daughters of this land. The vast majority, 12 million, are Palestinians. Half of them are in exile, about 25% under barbaric, brutal military occupation, and the rest as second-class subjugated citizens inside 48. All of these people need to have full rights, full absolute equality, freedom, and justice for all. Now, that means turning around everything that Israel is doing. But I'm saying that also with regard to the pandemic, because the pandemic is teaching us many things along the way. One thing that it taught us is also how the whole issue of social distancing or social responsibility in a way, because, you know, even when we wear a mask, even before the vaccines were available, wearing a mask doesn't protect me from basically being infected. It protects others from me. So the only way that it works is if there is a critical mass of people who are using a mask because of their sense of responsibility for others, and then we can turn the situation around. Another thing that is happening is that many things that, especially when people interact, many things get exchanged, both in infection, but also ideas. Which are even more powerful in a sense, like, you know, when people discuss equality and their rights and freedoms, etc. And I mentioned before that Israel has basically mastered the whole idea of divide and conquer. And they have implemented it very well, and they're implementing it also very well with regard to COVID. So the thing that breaks down both in the sense of a pandemic spreading is when you are able to not totally social distance. And this is what happens with a pandemic. At the same time, the thing that helps the pandemic is when we have a herd immunity, when most people are first of all, we are socially responsible towards others, and secondly, when we develop some sort of a herd immunity. I'd like to take that also to the political scene, to the political sphere, when people interact with each other, and this is possibly the thing that Israel is afraid of the most, when the people in the West Bank and Gaza and the Shatat and the refugees in the diaspora and in 48, they all interact as one group that has the same set of demands, all three fundamental basic rights that are being demanded by the BDS campaign. When we consolidate that and we have people kind of interacting and speaking not only about Gaza, not only about the West Bank, not only about this or that, but actually as a kind of consolidated form of demand, this breaks apart everything, this whole divide and conquer mentality. So this is the way to overturn the situation.
Sorry, I've got a couple of questions, Ronnie, if just after you.
So I'll just say one thing about the vaccine. AstraZeneca, the same vaccination that I mentioned before that is in the basket of the European Union and that Germany has admitted Israel to receive that type of vaccination, but only for its own citizens and not for the people of Gaza. This could be the vaccination that will kind of save us all in a way, because the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccinations are of these mRNA type of technology, which require cooling, very serious, like sub-zero temperatures, etc. And it takes much more, and they're also much more expensive, and it takes much more of handling, etc. But the vaccination that can be administered on a mass scale is the AstraZeneca vaccination, which is far cheaper. It is older technology, and therefore it doesn't require that type of cooling, etc. And this is what could actually save us in a way. Now, I'm happy that there are all these options, and all these options should be available for all of us. Including Gaza, including the people in Africa, Asia, etc. And we have to demand that of our governments, that these vaccinations should be available for all people. But I would like just to point the finger at this specific type of vaccine by AstraZeneca, that we should encourage that more than anything, because this is much more applicable, both in the sense of price and in the sense of handling, to deliver, for example, to the people of Gaza.
Okay, Ronnie, thanks very much. I'm going to come in with a couple of questions. Mona,
Yes.
somebody from Scotland asks, does medical aid for Palestine, for Palestinians, help with the provision of medicines in Gaza?
You mean MECA UK, yeah?
Yes, yes.
Yes, of course, yes. They are doing a great job. It helps. Their presence in Gaza helps not only with medicine and artificial limbs for people who lost it, and equipment, and this supporting health organizations. No, yes, they are very good.
Okay, a question from Helen. Dr. Mona, you said the public health are doing quite well in Gaza despite the terrible situation. Can you say a little more about the public measures that you are taking there in order to cope, as well as community efforts? Could you say a bit more about those inspiring activities?
Yeah, okay. I'll give an example from my experience as director of Middle East Children's Alliance in Gaza, which organization based in the USA, but I am the director here in Gaza. Since the start of the COVID in March, we supported two organizations in their mobile clinics. That means mobile clinics go to the people in their homes, the older people in their homes, with doctor, nurse, medicine, and special leaflets for increasing the awareness about the COVID virus. And we did this with the Union of Healthcare Committee in the south of Gaza Strip, and with Medical Relief Association, yeah. And that was in the beginning. These mobile clinics went to people in their homes, especially the elder people with the chronic illnesses, bronchial asthma, heart, hypertension, etc. Then when the virus became serious issue and many people were quarantined in their homes, suffering with the virus, the same teams in coordination with the Ministry of Health got the addresses and of those people, and again we supported them with those mobile clinics to go to give vitamins, antibiotics, and hygienic kits as well, and to check the health of the quarantined people at their homes. And this is, I believe, this is quite important public health work, and I am not sure if it is inspiring for you in the UK, but I feel it is. It was very important. It was very highly appreciated by the community, and we managed to reach when we managed to reach people at their home. But people need not only this; they need food. They need good food, and when in normal positions there's food insecurity. So we, as Middle East Children's Alliance, as well, in coordination with other colleagues working in public health and food sector on the grass, we delivered the food parcels for families, and we are continuously doing this. We support medicine for hospitals, like MECA UK is doing. We do the same, but maybe MECA UK do more because their resources are more than we do, but I appreciate, of course, their work. And we managed to give home visits for hundreds of cases, disabled people, for example, chronic people with the chronic illnesses, malnutrition children. We do many things. The beauty of it that we do it while we lack proper health system, while we lack proper health resources, while we are under occupation, while we are doing it, while increasing number of our medical staff has lost their lives because of the COVID virus, and we do it despite of the drones on top of our heads all the time, and many small attacks, small incursions into Gaza happened with the COVID-19, and every day we have the soldiers, the Israeli army, the Israeli occupying forces. They are in and out of the buffer zone areas. They are attacking the fishermen and the villagers. So we take care of we do everything despite of this, despite of feeling insecurity and here of safety or security, and people are worried about the attacks and worried about the COVID. So our suffering is double suffering, and I thank Ron here. Thank him very much, because he raised the point of that Gaza is an experimental field for the Israeli weapons and Israeli weapons trade outside the world. And once I came across a slide saying it was tested in Gaza. It was tested in Gaza, and this is true, because in every attack against Gaza, there's always something new and different way of weapons that has been bombed on top of our heads, and it is experimental. We are experimental fields, and again, this is racism. Again, this is apartheid. This is somebody who is superior and thinks that the other is inferior, which they think we are inferior. No, we are not inferior.
Mona, I'm going to give you, Mona, the last word. But before that, Ronnie, Israeli economist Sherhiva said about 78% of all aid to the Palestinians ends up in Israeli coffers. Now, I'm not an economist, but Israel makes money out of a lot of suffering and a lot of pain that it causes the Palestinians. Ronnie, what do you want people in Britain and in Scotland to do in the current situation of agony in Gaza and Palestine?
First of all, heed the call from Palestinians, especially those in Gaza, and the many others. There are millions, like I said, 12 million people, 12 million Palestinians scattered all over the world, who are calling on us, on us, the people of the world, and obviously on conscientious Israelis, to basically demand their basic rights. And demanding equality, freedom, and justice from Israel means that at the present time, until Israel abides by its obligations under international law and the human rights conventions that it is signed upon, we need to apply as much pressure of boycott, divestment, and sanctions on Israel. It is as simple as that, and it's a real no-brainer. The very least that we can do is to apply pressure and to demand of our representatives to apply pressure on that criminal race state, which applies apartheid, that is a crime against humanity. Applies not only apartheid, it's, we don't have time to go into the whole history of colonialism and supremacy, etc. But we have to remember that apartheid is applied throughout the territory and beyond, because it also applies to the refugees and the diaspora. There is, what we are hearing from Mona now is also about a medical apartheid in the medical field, which is possibly the most sinister form of apartheid, when you take the people who are the most impoverished and the most in need of treatment, and you also deny them that, or condition it on certain practice by them, only if you are from this faction, only if you will cooperate, only if this, only if that. You know, even the most basic treatment, for example, for cancer patients in Gaza, so many patients cannot get their most basic treatment for identified cancer cases. Because Israel denies it from them. They cannot get the most basic access to medicine, even anesthesia for surgeries. When I heard that the doctors in hospitals, in Gazan hospitals, have to choose which ones to operate and which ones not, or to operate on people without anesthetics because there are simply not enough. That's heartbreaking. That's really when I said that Israel is applying a monstrous form of siege, I mean things like that. So yes, all people of the world must act. And it doesn't require much. It simply requires them to demand full accountability from those, from the perpetrators, and to demand that Israel, it doesn't even have to be treated worse than as an exceptional case. We only need to treat Israel as any other state, and that will be enough, because Israel gets the preferential treatment all the time from the EU, from the US, from this, from that. And if it simply is regarded as a state among other nations and also abides or by its obligations under the laws that apply to all nations, that'll be enough. That will solve pretty much everything that we have been discussing here.
Thank you, Ronnie. Mona, what do you want to tell people? What do you want the viewers to do? There's not much, there's so many things that we cannot influence. Our government in Britain are incompetent criminals. They've killed 85,000 people here, most of them avoidable. They arm Israel, they supply sniper rifle parts. They're our enemy, almost, not as much, but they're our enemy as much as your enemy. Mona, what do you want to say to people in Britain? What can we possibly do, at least to stay clean when our governments are so criminal?
Yeah. First thing that the solidarity movement in Britain are doing very well in different parts of Britain and Ireland as well. So first, I call upon them to join any local solidarity movement to learn more about what's happening in Palestine under occupation, and the history of Palestine, and the history of the not conflict, the struggle for freedom. This is the first thing. Second thing, we are not a case of charity. It is about solidarity, because your solidarity means a lot for us. But despite of that, here, through my work, all those years in Gaza, I am faced with women, men, children who need medicine, education, safety, playing. So it is good if you help us to encourage the steadfastness of people and their existence on the land, because of one of our most important achievement as Palestinian in Gaza and the West Bank, that after 70 years, more than 70 years, we are on the land. We are still on the land and waiting for our day of freedom. So this is a strong point. With your solidarity, you can empower this point, and with some practical support. For example, we need medicine. We need, I am running a project for nutrition for children in the kindergartens. People can help in that if they like to. But as I said, the most important is to learn more, that it is not a humanitarian case, full stop. We have rights, and our rights have been abused. And it is not only about what's happening in Palestine under the Israeli occupation. It is not human rights abuse only. It is war crimes. So to help us, to help the children of Gaza, the women of Gaza, the men of Gaza, to get through some needs. I know the burden is very heavy, but think from here, from there, it helps us to continue keeping the hope alive for those people. And I always, when I said, what is my New Year resolution, I thought that I'll continue keeping the hope alive. And you help me and help us as a team, either MECA or through MAP or whatever you choose, to help us keeping the hope alive, because nothing worse than people losing hope. And we'll try all the time to make this beside our practical support, our political situation. And I think that's all what I want to see. So help the children with medicine, with clothes for winter, but it's all, it should be not in kind. It should be money, because Israel doesn't allow any second-hand thing to enter Gaza. I wish this can be applicable, because I know that recycling and changing things, people cannot donate money all the time, but they have many toys, many clothes, but unfortunately you cannot get them. Otherwise, this could be very good for us to get toys for our children, even second-hand, but in good condition. But this is not the case. We cannot get anything old in Gaza. Again, this is part of, I don't know why they do that. It is not for health, but I don't have any explanation for that. Continue thinking of us, because when I go to different places in Gaza. Yesterday I was in Khuza'a village that has been subjected to very, very bad massacre during the year 2014. And people were very happy to see me and the team, that we are talking, we are encouraging them, we are seeing some of the medical facilities, some of the farmers. See, this is social solidarity. With your help, we can continue. We can continue, and this is humanity. This is not only humanitarian. This is how the world should be. World for all, regardless race, regardless faith, political ideas or ideologies. That we are in this world. We should be one family, and we should all work towards social justice. Social justice, and it will come, equality and equity, and it will come one day. But we should continue in the same path, focus what we need for this world.
Mona.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Mona El-Farra in Gaza, Ronnie in 48. Thank you very much indeed for joining us tonight and sharing your knowledge and thoughts. Mona ended up by saying the key thing is to keep hope alive in situations where, given the roles of our government and the Israeli government, it should have been extinguished a long time ago. Scottish-Palestine Solidarity Campaign exists to try to keep hope alive by driving Israeli state-sponsored groups from the Edinburgh Festival, by building boycott, divestment and sanctions, by getting divestment by pension funds from Israeli banks, by fighting the Jewish National Fund, a racist organization. Tony Blair is a patron, and it tries to finish the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. But we're deeply in your debt for joining us, and especially you, Mona El-Farra. I think you better get to bed, Mona, and I do apologize for intruding in your exhaustion.
No,
Mona
I'm sorry about that, but it is very cold, and it has been a long day for me.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry. The crime in Gaza is facilitated by our government, and we have a duty to try to end it. Friends, thank you for joining us today. Mahmoud Zouare sent his apologies late in the day. He has a family issue that he had to attend to, but we'll try to arrange for Mahmoud to join us at some time in the future to take forward the discussion about COVID in the West Bank. Again, this is Mick Napier on behalf of the Scottish-Palestine Solidarity Campaign. Thank you again, Ronnie. Thank you, Dr. Mona El-Farra. Goodbye.
Thank you all.
Goodbye. Goodbye, and thank you for having us.